Didn't anyone ever tell you copying is cheating?
I call it winning.
Of all the villains that have been adapted to the MCU, none have struck a chord as strongly as Taskmaster did in Black Widow. Radically different from their comic counterpart, the MCU's Taskmaster has left fans befuddled and torn. Today at CBR, we're exploring the possibility of Taskmaster's on-screen death. The exact origins of the mercenary known as Taskmaster are murky and unknown. Some people believe that Anthony Masters was born in the Bronx in New York City, but this has never been confirmed. What is known about Anthony Masters is that even at a very young age, he demonstrated the amazing ability to replicate the exact physical movements he saw someone else perform. Any physical movement, regardless of the type or difficulty, became ingrained in his muscle memory instantly. As Anthony grew older, he considered using his skills for the greater good and becoming a superhero. However, the clarion call of easy money proved too seductive, and he donned the moniker of Taskmaster instead. Dressed in a hooded cape and his iconic skull mask, Taskmaster cuts a terrifying figure to behold. To the heroes on Earth, he's one of the most dangerous and lethal assassins in the world. Taskmaster's powers are fairly easy to understand. Through what he calls photographic reflexes, Taskmaster is able to replicate any physical movement he witnesses. This means that the longer a fight lasts against him, the greater chance Taskmaster has of predicting his opponent's moves. He was able to become just as adept at archery as Hawkeye. Taskmaster became just as advanced a martial artist as Iron Fist, and the list goes on. If Taskmaster has watched them fight, he's an exact replica of their fighting styles.
Permission to activate Taskmaster protocol.
Now, all these amazing abilities come at an extremely high cost for Taskmaster, though. The more he learns, the more he forgets. Specifically, the more physical memory that Taskmaster takes in, the more of his own memories are pushed out of his mind. This has had disastrous effects on his personal life, but the mercenary has found ways of combating such a drastic setback in his life. Another major limit to his powers is that Taskmaster cannot replicate any movement or action that is superhuman in nature, such as running at supersonic speeds or flying. There are a few individuals that can nullify his ability to read their next moves too. Taskmaster may not have the supreme power of the Hulk or the gift of flight like Thor, but he is still a master-class assassin that remains as one of the most highly sought-after mercenaries in the world. Cold, hard cash is his bottom line, and he doesn't care what he needs to do to earn it. Because of this, Taskmaster has become an iconic fan favorite in the comics, which was why his interpretation in the MCU rubbed so many people the wrong way.
She watches everything. And she can do it.
Taskmaster made his MCU debut in 2020's Black Widow. While sporting a similar outfit to his comics appearance, the MCU version of Taskmaster was muted in color and had replaced the iconic skull mask with a standard military helmet. Most strikingly different, however, was the fact that the MCU version of Taskmaster was not Anthony Masters at all, but rather a woman named Antonia Dreykov. This incarnation of Taskmaster was a product of the Red Room and was the daughter of the overseer of the Red Room, General Dreykov. In Black Widow, Taskmaster was sent out to kill Natasha Romanoff at all costs, but ultimately failed in her mission. While the idea of changing characters' backstories is nothing new in the MCU, the customarily sharp-talking braggart was now mute, and the famous outfit was subdued in nature. It felt as if Taskmaster had all their vitality stripped away and replaced with a robot. This isn't to say that the character of Antonia Dreykov doesn't have potential or that she didn't fit the Black Widow narrative. It's just that she could have been a better character had she not been labeled as Taskmaster. The last fans saw of Taskmaster, she had been defeated by Black Widow, but not killed, with Thunderbolts. Coming out next year, the MCU's version of Taskmaster will make her return alongside a host of other villains that have populated the past few phases over the years. It's unclear why all the villains are being summoned together and by whom, but there's a good chance not all of them will survive to see the next phase in the MCU. It might sound horrible to say this, but of all the characters that could face an untimely end in Thunderbolts, Taskmaster will most certainly be one that few people will miss. Against characters such as US Agent, Ghost, and Red Guardian, Taskmaster lacks any amount of real characterization. She's a blank slate with virtually no personality to her name. In the context of her backstory, Antonia being a blank slate makes sense, and it does lend itself to the tragedy of her character. Antonia was used as nothing more than a weapon by her father, and it's heartbreaking to think of who she could have been in a better world. If Thunderbolts leans into the inherent tragedy of her backstory, Taskmaster could become a beloved MCU character. However, the tragedy of Antonia's backstory still doesn't change the fact that Taskmaster currently is lacking severely for any emotional crutch that will tug at viewers' heartstrings should she face a sudden death. The Thunderbolts movie will need to change that to establish Taskmaster as an integral part of the team and to make the audience more invested in her story. Whoever the primary antagonist of Thunderbolts will be, it's likely that they will amass a sizable body count by the end of the movie. With the MCU poised to make a massive change in the near future with Avengers, Secret Wars on the distant horizon, now is the time for Marvel to clean up shop and strip away all the cobwebs. The ragtag group of villains in Thunderbolts, with the exception of Bucky Barnes and Yelena Belova, are all rather disposable, and they're villains. Watching a few members of the team die in a suitably dramatic way won't have the same emotional weight attached to it as Thanos' infamous snap did in Avengers: Infinity War. We're not watching Spider-Man or Black Panther disintegrate away. We're watching a bad guy that had their time in the spotlight possibly die without redemption. It may be cruel to consider it that way, but such is the life of a supervillain. Taskmaster, for all their potential, wasn't the MCU's hottest villain. Compared to Loki, Hela, or Ego, Taskmaster was largely forgettable. Had she been given speaking lines, had her outfit been brighter, had she been more comic accurate, well, maybe Taskmaster would have left a better impression on fans when she appeared in Black Widow. As it stands, Taskmaster is primed to be nothing more than cannon fodder against whatever unknown threat the Thunderbolts will face, and if it's the Sentry, well, it's likely no one's leaving that movie in one piece. The worst thing to consider with Taskmaster's possible death is that it won't have any lasting impact on the future of the MCU. Do you think Taskmaster will die in Thunderbolts? If she does, will it have a large impact on the MCU? Comment, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching CBR.